Hi, I'm John W. Kennedy. I always put the W in because I've been asked about my middle initials since birth. I live in Madison, New Jersey. I've been here my whole life, and that's pretty special because my son was actually third generation through Madison High School. It's a wonderful place to grow up. It's changed and evolved, but so is everything else. Fond childhood memories here always revolved around getting on my bicycle, riding around town with my glove, and finding a baseball game to play in. And I did that pretty much every night from March until about October. My everyday life is, even though I am quasi-retired, I have spent a lot of time consulting with the state of New Jersey, the federal government, and others in engineering, in manufacturing, and in working with workforce development programs because we're not feeding the industries as we need to do. So that's become my big passion. I've enjoyed writing for a long time. I started writing after my dad died suddenly when I was a teenager. I didn't know how to put things into words, so I asked my mom, and she said, then write them down. So I spent a lot of time after that writing just about every morning. It wasn't about anything specific. It was something that came into my head often. And then I was asked by several local newspapers and editors. Liz Parker from the Madison Eagle was a great benefactor to me, saying, hey, write about this, write about Boy Scouts, write about business, write about that. And so it became something different. The book, 12 Simple Words, which, has been a passion project because it's about the Boy Scout law, the 12 words there. I've thought about writing this book for a long time, but I could never figure out how to do it. Originally I was writing about a business book. That didn't fit. So I decided to write more about how the words affected me in life, personal, professional, etc. And then I asked people from all walks of life to add to it, and that became the other voices. And from there, the book emerged. So it was kind of cool to come to that. It just took me a decade. To me, in writing this book, it was critical to get it out at this point in time, at least in my mind, because what I talk about in 12 Simple Words are how these words affect us, how free speech affects us in the United States, what free speech really is, and how we have to be accepting of other people, but also that it's okay to argue. It's okay to discuss. It's okay to change your mind. But you need to do that in a more respectful fashion than just shouting somebody down. The 12 simple words are something we learn in Boy Scouts from day one. You learn the oath and you learn the law. The law are 12 words: trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Wow, that's a mouthful. And a lot of times as kids, we said them all as one word because we were trying to rush our way through them. One of my scoutmasters asked me to slow down and think about them. And if you repeat those words to yourself and think about how they apply to you in your life, you start to come together with a thought process that is different than just plugging through the world. When I was younger, there was a big pay it forward. In fact, they made a movie and everything else, and that was basically talking about how when you do good for one, that person can pay that forward. It's evolved over the years, I think, because pay it forward has become more that if you believe in a charity or some type of religious group or whatever, you pay it forward by actually paying it forward, by donating, which is very important, don't get me wrong. But you need to understand that while paying it forward, it doesn't complete the circle. Saying it forward is telling other people. It's not a matter of bragging. It's a matter of telling people why you did something. Hey, I got involved with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the food bank, whatever, so that maybe they see and hear and say, you know what, I really like something else. I like the American Heart Association. They help my mom or dad. And then they get engaged. The acting it forward is really a call to action. And I think it's very important in today's world is that we need to consider action. When I was a kid, you walked around the neighborhood and you shoveled people's walks when it snowed. It didn't matter. You wanted to get paid, but if no one could afford it, you did it anyway. So acting it forward is important. It's not about the amount. It's not about the dollar value. It's about the action. My passion since I was a little kid include, scouting, sports, the environment. It's all important to me because it all ties together. The scouting program and getting out there in the wilderness and backpacking through Philmont, which is a scout ranch out in New Mexico. I'll just plug it and say that's a picture of my son and I about 20 years ago on the top of Mount Phillips out there. Why is that important? Well, because we realize that we have to be good stewards of our land and our environment. But it's also applied to me in how I approached my business life and especially my sporting life, because that taught me the lessons maybe aren't grasped by everybody anymore, but fair play, working hard, making sure that you put 100% into what you're trying to do. So all of these things are connected in my life, or at least I see them as that. This book and the development of this book is really my evolution as a person. It started with Boy Scouts at age 11, how I went through school, how I went through my changes through my business world, starting as a young engineer that was just trying to get through, to owning, a manufacturing and an engineering business, to running a company called NJMEP, which focuses on manufacturing in New Jersey. All of these lessons compiled, I hope, to make me a better manager, to make me a better leader, to make me a better person. From an early age, as I said, my dad passed when I was a teen, and I realized how much value I got out of the scouting program and what I owed back because of how they supported me after his loss. So at age 22, graduating from college, coming back to my town of Madison, getting together with two close friends, Dave Carey and Bob Beeman, we took over the Boy Scout troop and we worked together and we learned together. We really stunk as actual troop leaders to start, but we knew a lot about camping and hiking and stuff, and we learned our way through it. 37 years later, the three of us still were working together and adding programs, like a program that Bob and I created called LEADER, LEDR, through Team Eagle Foundation, which worked with 15 to 20-year-old boys and girls and expose them to opportunities, whether that be career, educational, or personal. These are the things that helped me because people stepped up and helped me. If we don't pay it forward, say it forward, and act it forward, then we've lost something. My professional passion has been STEM, manufacturing, engineering, and obviously right now, and maybe not as obvious to everyone, but to us, there's no pipeline for individuals entering these fields. We've sort of forgotten them. Now, these are career-based fields, high-paying fields, but we're not exposing young people to these opportunities for them. Just thinking about how these words apply to your life and how they can apply to your career, that changes how individuals, especially young people, can think, about what the next step is. So 12 Simple Words plays a part in not only how you are as that individual person and how you treat others, but how you treat yourself when you decide on a career path. In 2010, my friend Bob Beeman, who I mentioned before, another friend, Dennis Cole, who was a Scout executive. We were trying to find a way to reach young people. The Scouting program's amazing at that, so are the Girl Scouts, but we wanted to give them something a little bit different. We wanted to expose them to life opportunities, career opportunities. And so we had to find a way to build a structure. Spoke about the LEDR program, leader program. Well, that had to sit somewhere. So we developed the Team Eagle Foundation. We created that, and that's where the leader program sat. And it was very successful for 8 years. Had over 300 young people come to a week-long program and mentoring and support. And it was great. But the problem then happened, COVID. So COVID shut us down from being able to do that for several years. And afterwards, it was very difficult. Unfortunately, my buddy Bob passed away from cancer. It was not easy. So we evolved just like you do in life. And it became a program where we supplied scholarships, educational grants to individuals, underserved individuals, and groups like, Junior Achievement, the County College of Morris Foundation, the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, helping them educate people and developing people, because that's what it was all about anyway, is providing pathways for people. So it was very interesting how, Team Eagle, like my life, sort of evolved to where it is. I never expected, to be at this point. So it's part of the fun. The 12 words really do provide the impetus to my life, and especially my life as a professional, and how that ties in. You think about the word trustworthy. What does it mean to you? Think about other words like loyal. But then again, think about the words that don't always, come out. Clean. How do you apply that to your life? Is it important? And the answer is yes. And when you stop to think about it, that's where the change comes in. That's where your evolution comes in. So it's simple, each one of us have to learn and apply these words to us. I can't do that for you. You can't do it for me. That's what's important about it. How does my family, how did that motivate me? It motivates me in everything in life. I got very lucky, not so lucky with losing dad, but I had a mom who's amazing. And then I met a lady at college that was, 50 years later is still the prettiest, smartest person I've ever met. And so how can I look beyond those blessings that I received? You can't. So I look at it differently. I look at, how do these words still apply to me? How can I use them to be effective? And how they will hopefully change others in a positive fashion. The people in my life that really, managed to push these 12 words, it's a variety of people and individuals. It's people like my Scout masters, Ben Russell and Dennis Spencer. It's like friends like Bob Beeman, Dave Carey. But it's also about the other people that I've ran into over the years. And a lot of times it comes from different places. In Boy Scouts, when you reach Eagle Scout, or just before you reach Eagle Scout, you have what's called a board of review, where you're reviewed by 5 or 6 people that you don't know. And let me tell you, you're 14, 15, that's scary. So to sit there and to be able to talk about it, I sat on as a leader over 200 boards. And the one question that I ask every time is, what word of the Scout Law made the most impression on you? And it's amazing to me that every word has been chosen multiple times in those years. But also, the insight that a 15, 16-year-old kid had that was better than mine as an adult and what I could learn from him. We don't like learning from kids sometimes. I just want to learn from anybody that knows better than I do. How can we apply this book to today's world? I think you can do it just by paying attention to the words and putting them into practice. It isn't rocket science, but we've got to change the way we look at each other. We don't like somebody because they voted for a different party. That's absurd. We don't like somebody because they root for a different team. Asinine. We don't, like somebody because they came from a different part of the world. How does that make sense? That's the importance. How does it make sense? And if the answer is it really doesn't, then you need to change the way you're acting. Period. My suggestion to youth today, and looking at the Boy Scout law, the Girl Scout law, the 12 simple words, all of this stuff, is to give it all a chance. When you go into these programs, don't quit them because you don't think it's cool or it's boring. Believe me, when you're hiking along a mountain ridge 13,000 feet up, that's as exciting as any sport you're ever going to play. So give it a chance. And secondly, pay attention. We watch so many TV shows and commercials where the adults and the parents are laughingly portrayed as idiots. We don't realize that they went through the same things that we went through and learned lessons that we need to learn. So my mom always said, pay attention. And she didn't mean listen. She meant pay attention to the situation and learn from it. That's my suggestion. 12 simple words. I hope it's a starting point for additional books. I have some ideas talking about workforce development and the applicability of common sense to some of the things we're doing. Educationally, we're not setting the world on fire in the United States. And it's not because of bad teachers, bad schools, bad kids. It's because we've lost our focus on what really is important. And I do think that I have another book in my head. I started outlining it and putting it together, but for this old engineer, it takes a little time to make it work. When you take into consideration the one single message that comes out of 12 simple words to me, was something my mom said every single day to me. She would say, make a positive difference. That was every day. And it wasn't just saying it to me. When we came home, she'd ask us, well, what positive difference? What did you do positive today? And as a kid, it just was odd to think that way. You didn't always have that wonderful, incredible day. I was not an angel. So some days I came home with a negative message. But she would dig around to find that one positive piece. And that's become something that's important to me now. I think about it every day. I think about her. She's gone now 25 years. I think about how, what did I do positive today? And I dig to find it because it's important. And we all should think that. That's the message of the book. What'd you do differently today? What did you do positive? Make it part of your life. Take the lesson from the book. Take the lesson from my mom. Make that positive difference every day. And make sure you do it. Have fun.